Yo, peep these patch notes.
Right off the bat, we're talking about the exodus of physical games. I know this is a hurtful subject for our boy Bill. I know Bill is.
Yeah, man.
It's sad. I think it's sad too, man. I mean,
No, it's goddamn detrimental to the entire industry. It's not just sad. This is actually like the potential like downfall starting point of the industry. I feel like it's that big of a deal.
ooh,
Well, it is. It's not hit the
might be,
U.S.
I
yet.
don't know.
It has hit the U.K. So big. Basically, the person that they're talking about, the retailer they're talking about, is Tesco. It's a major UK retailer. Basically announced that they are stopping, or they're going to soon stop selling physical copies. They have not stopped yet, but they're soon going to stop it. To give you a reference point of it, the article noted that Call of Duty, which I guess now Call of Duty is the
Call of
fucking
Duty is
like
a buzzword.
yeah, it's the litmus test that we're gonna have for all this stuff.
yeah.
The main presentation point.
Yeah, is saw a 50% drop in physical sales comparable year over year. So you're talking, as
Yeah.
far as back as 2016, they've been seeing this drop, which is yes,
Well,
understandable.
you've got to look at it in retrospective, like ease of access. Like I understand where you're coming from, Bill, where it's like, yes, physical copies, like that's your bread and butter, right? Like if you have a physical copy, you can never have that taken away from you, obviously, right?
Right.
So I don't agree with you in stating that it's the downfall of the entire gaming economy, though. Like the
No,
physical
not the
copy
gaming
of
economy.
games.
It's the downfall of the gaming industry in a way where this is just going to be a launching point where we're never going to be able to own our video games again.
That's what I was about. I would agree that it's the downfall of the consumer's choice, essentially, right? When it comes down to gaming, like obviously if they no longer have the ability to purchase physical copies of something, that's a terrible thing, and I do agree with you. But the industry has been going digital for years. I don't think that I have purchased a physical copy of a game since 2012.
I don't know. I don't know when
2011. The last physical game.
Now that you own a Switch.
The last, well, that is very true. I so far have not. I so far have not purchased
back in that day, anyways. Like,
I so far have not purchased a game on Switch that hasn't been digital though. So, like, they do offer that, but I think the last physical game that I purchased was probably Skyrim. Maybe. So
that makes sense. Everybody's got a disc of Skyrim somewhere.
That has been a long time. So, like, to say that that's the downfall of the industry, I think is a little hyperbolic in my opinion. But I do agree with you in stating that that is the downfall of like user choice for sure, 100%. And I see where you're coming from with like, if it, it's a very slippery slope when it comes down to, it's like,
a huge slippery slope.
You're not purchasing and owning anything that you have. Like my current collection on Steam, I don't technically own any of those games. If Steam closes down tomorrow, my entire fucking like 500 game collection is gone. So I understand.
Weren't we just talking about how nowadays discs are almost essentially just a key also to games?
Yeah.
So
depends on the developer, depends on the game.
Yeah.
Most
it would actually
games
cost
that are on disc are the actual 1.0 version of the game. Most.
I personally I don't have anything to back this up, obviously, but I would personally say that it costs more to put things on discs these days than not.
Yeah, it does.
Well, it obviously is. There's the production cost of it. Yeah.
Well, the bigger one of the other things to kind of keep in mind with this is that right now the I think it's called the Internet Library, I think is the name of the website. I need to go back and check, but they're actually in a pretty big lawsuit right now with basically with the terms being around like, hey, like we are trying to take these old games and these games and digitize them for record keeping
to preserve them,
to preserve it, because one, like NES games and stuff like that, like they can't be around forever, like and as games get move to a digital format and non-physical, for record keeping purposes, we have to have digital. And
that's what I like about GOG. GOG that's owned by
CD Projekt Red.
Yeah, CD Projekt Red. Is that like they're also trying to do that with games. They're trying to make games available to people that are too old to be, still being sold on copies of physical copies. They're also trying to get rid of DRM because they don't feel like that's worthy of being in. They don't think that this should be like those old games shouldn't have DRM at this point, right?
Right.
I do agree with that. Like some of those old games are getting
game preservation is extremely important.
Yeah, exactly. And
I
think that's a
digitization is a nice thing.
Well, if they allow it though, that's the problem. Is that's what I'm saying, is that you've got like companies like this. Like again, I think it is the Internet Library, but
is it a certain developer
it's an organization? It's a bunch of them. I mean,
it's certain developers that are going against the Internet Library to say we don't want our game on there. Okay, yeah.
Is Nintendo one of them?
Yes, Nintendo is one.
Yeah.
I don't doubt it. Yeah.
I don't doubt that.
But this was is technically in Quick Hit, but like we actually saw this with like Ubisoft recently, right? Where the Assassin's Creed, a bunch of their games, you lost access to play it,
shutting down,
right? Like they just basically said,
not only, well, you on some of them you didn't lose access to playing them, but you lost access to like your access to their DLC. Like, so some of them you lost access to on like the online modes, which that's what they're bringing back. But you lost actual access to your DLC that you purchased because they stopped offering that. Like, if you didn't download it, there was no other way to download it.
Yeah, and they took it off the market.
Yeah.
Right. And we see that on there's games on Steam that are like that. Like I can't, like I've purchased games on Steam and I can't download them.
We actually saw that from Sony as well recently with their PSP stuff. Remember when they started did they ever go back on that or no? Did we ever look into that?
I don't know. I haven't.
I do not know.
And I mean, everybody does it, right? Xbox, like they've all done it, right? Like every single platform has gone about doing this. So yes, I mean it is. I think that I don't like legislation being involved in a lot of this stuff, right? But I do think that there should be some type of legislation that if we are going to move to a fully digital world, that there should be something in place that says, hey, this is still art. This is considered art and it needs to be preserved. Just like we have the Library of Congress, we have, the Smithsonian, you have all of these things that preserve all this stuff. This needs to be preserved as well somewhere in a digital database, right? That we are able to access and see it, right?
I think there needs to be some just overall changes to digital ownership when it comes to games as well. Because if we had the ability to physically like own and not just pull from a server games on a digital basis, I would not have an
license,
issue.
Like own a license.
I would not have an issue with physical disappearing. I would like to be able to
pull an NFT.
NFTs could be an answer. They could. That could be a good use for it.
You want to own the blockchain?
Not the worst.
But for real.
Yeah.
If consumer ownership is important, and I think the FTC should be looking into stuff like this as opposed to what they've been
100%
pushing.
Taxpayer money could have been put to much better use than battling against Microsoft for an entire year.
Yeah. But it scares me. Physical ownership is the only way to 100% own most of your games. And
sorry, go ahead.
If it fades, then I don't know. It'll leave a massive sour taste in my mouth when it comes to gaming, and I might actually like stop. It's that point. I'm that passionate about gaming in general.
Totally, stopping and halting sales on physical games, like. Because I feel like easily instead they could just have it to be physical copies would be on order instead of mass distribution.
No,
so I don't see why that isn't a choice. Like they don't have to keep pumping out physical copies left and right and wasting money on the copies that aren't being sold, but just have them on order. Like I don't know.
So to update on the PSP situation, apparently yes, Sony did go back on it. They went back and said it turns out that you'll still be able to buy PSP games through Sony Store after all, even after their July 2nd, 2020.
There was a big upright on that. I'm not shocked.
Holy shit! I am honestly shocked that I remember that. That was in 2021.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So yeah. But I agree. Yeah. 100%.
Thanks all for tuning in to the Patch Notes. And if you enjoyed and want to see more, you can catch us live every Thursday night at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, or catch us after the fact at anchor.fm/prepatch podcast. See you next time.